Welcome students to Unit 13. In this unit, you're required to read Layman's book, Chapter 8, Section 4. And what we're introducing in this section is the idea of and the tool of, and it's really a rule of conditional proof. Some arguments have a conditional as their conclusion. And so just given our 18 rules that we've learned so far, the 8 implication and the 10 equivalency rules, we would not be able to prove the conclusion of an argument with that has a conditional as a conclusion as valid. So the idea of a conditional proof, the rule and procedure of a conditional proof was introduced in order to be able to show these types of arguments that have a conditional as a conclusion are valid. There's no quiz this week, so don't worry about that, but you need to take your time with this section. So this week we'll cover this. So this is our final rule, and it completes our system of propositional logic. Without it, like I said, we would not be able to construct truths for some arguments, and it simplifies other proofs that we would otherwise not been able to do without it. The basic idea behind a conditional proof, which you can just call CP, is that we can prove a conditional true by assuming that its antecedent is true and showing that its consequent can be derived from this assumption, together with whatever premises are available and our 18 rules that we've learned so far. A thing to keep in mind is that you will continue to use the 18 rules you've learned so far, and you will do the proof in a deductive manner, just like you have been doing. The big difference is that you will be working under an assumption. A CP gives us a way to show that assumption. Layman explains this well, but take your time in reading the material. And the way that the assumption is made, so when the conclusion is a conditional, what we do is we assume the truth of the antecedent, and we want to be able to show that somehow. So if you have an argument with 3 premises and the conclusion is a conditional, in premise 4 we take that antecedent of that conditional and we assume it. And given those premises and all of our 18 rules, we want to derive the consequent of that conditional in the conclusion. So a way to set that assumption off of the conclusion, you can use brackets. So the brackets along with the annotation assume, so you're letting them know that I'm assuming the antecedent of this conditional in this conclusion. I'm assuming it, so make sure you write assume out beside it. You annotate it that way. And you can use brackets to bracket off those premises that you then deduce from that assumption and those premises in our rules. So everything within the brackets from that assumption of that assumption and to what we're trying to derive, which is the consequent of that conclusion, falls within those brackets. So you want to close those brackets when you reach that. So make sure that in doing CP and later when we do reductio ad absurdum, that your proofs look like either the proofs in the book that Layman uses with brackets. If you can't figure out how to use brackets on your computer, you can also indent the assumption, which is much easier probably on your computer. Indent the assumption and provide a bar for it. And everything within that indentation in that bar will fall within the scope of that assumption. So you can use brackets or use bars, and it needs to look exactly like Layman has explained in the book. So when you assume the antecedent of the conditional, you need to have at the end of that line of reasoning, you need to have the conclusion of that conditional, so that you're saying if that antecedent, then that consequent, and then therefore you've proven the conditional proof and shown that that argument is a valid argument.